This is the KCSD podcast brought to you by the Kershaw County School District in Camden, South Carolina.
Happy New Year. It is January 9th. We're discussing the school board meeting that was held just a few hours ago. Dr. Morgan, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. But, we started back last week, had a 3-day week, and I think we had 6 days worth of excitement in 3 days. And we'll talk more about the weather excitement later. But it's really nice to be back to something that resembles normal.
Our regular schedule.
Really?
Well, as I mentioned, our meeting actually started earlier today because it's the organizational meeting for the board.
When this goes back to the 70s, but because the way the school board was set up here, the school board is to do, in Kershaw County, is to do its organizational meeting at the same time that the General Assembly is gaveling into session. So the General Assembly started at 10 o'clock this morning. The school board did its organizational meeting at 10 o'clock this morning, which is kind of nice because we do a school board meeting during the day versus in the evening, which I don't know that really particularly bothers anybody. It's just nice. Today, and again, this is Mr. Ron Blackman, who did an outstanding job as chair, decided to step down as chair, and he announced that before the holidays. And so this morning, Dr. James Smith was elected chair, Ms. Shirley Halley was elected vice chair, and Mr. Derek Proctor was elected chaplain, all by unanimous votes, which was a real good thing. Looking forward to working with all three of those individuals. Mr. Smith picked in the way this works is I chair the meeting till a chairman is appointed or elected, and he picked right up and went right through the agenda. So I think we're off to a real good start. And again, the thing I'll say is being on a school board's difficult. Being a board officer makes that difficult job even more difficult and challenging because, again, you have to lead 9 people that have various different points of view, which is good, but it's a challenge to kind of keep everybody moving in a good direction. And Mr. Blackman certainly did a great job of that, and I know that Dr. Smith will do the same.
Excellent. And I know a new calendar of all the meetings was set.
And we normally meet on the first and third Tuesday. There's a couple of exceptions, like during the summer and around Thanksgiving and around 4th of July. But basically, we do meet on a very structured basis. And again, finance facilities meetings will be at noon on the last Tuesday of the month, in generally speaking.
Okay, excellent.
So, but it was, everybody got off to a great start. We were, and it's always kind of exciting.
That's right. Great way to start it off. Good, good. Well, talk to you about the November financial reports.
Well, we did a couple of agenda items today, and we wanted to keep the meeting a little bit, short because people had to get back to work. November financials look really good. The thing that's a little different is last year tax bills in Kershaw County went out unbelievably early. So our revenue collections this year aren't as good as they were to this point last year, but we figure you can see it, and we've looked at some preliminary figures. It's all going to catch up by the end of December, end of January. But we are still ahead of projection in terms of revenues. We are behind in terms of expenditures, which is a good thing. Okay. It's a real good thing not to have spent as much as you expected to spend by by the end of November. So, the financials are in very, very good condition. Our cash position is very good. I'm real excited about where we are. Obviously, that I'm a little concerned, as I told the board, with the cold snap we've had the last couple of weeks. Obviously, and we've kept the buildings at what's called occupied. Normally, the buildings go to an unoccupied setting that turns the heat down at night. We have left the buildings occupied for now, a week to 10 days, which is going to obviously have an impact on energy bills. That just is what it is. One of the interesting things, though, about the cold snap was that we really didn't have the pipe problems I expected. We had one pipe freeze at Mount Pisgah and another pipe problem at Wateree, which is pretty normal. As my wife said, Wateree pipe problem. Isn't that... That's clever. She thought that was funny. But we really didn't have that many problems as far as heating systems or water. And I think that's because our maintenance guys have really spent the last year making sure we're ready for just this kind of thing. So anyway, I was pretty happy. But the financials were very, very good for the end of November, and I'm real pleased about that.
Excellent. Well, I know that there were some adopted legislative positions. We've discussed them a little bit. But
well,
now
the board
official.
finally adopted them. Last week on Thursday, the Alpha Center holds something called a legislative briefing every year. It's a luncheon, and folks get together and talk to legislators informally. Mr. Daniel Roberts, who's the legislative liaison for our delegation, worked it out so that the school board could meet with our members of our delegation an hour before that started. So we had a really good conversation. The board has adopted two formal positions. One, to allow school districts the latitude to open earlier in order to get 90 days in before Christmas. And the second one was to put the earnings limitation on retiree workers, they'll hold it for a year. So all the committees looking at teacher and educator retention and retirement and all these things that are very related get a chance to get their work done and mesh it. And we feel real good about both of those positions. Two other things that are going to come out of this assembly that will impact the school board. One, there's going to be legislation that would move school board elections to November. We had this situation where the school board elections are really based on the primaries that take place in May, and somebody who is elected doesn't take office for almost 7 months. That doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. Or somebody who's leaving office is still in office for 7 months, even if they lost the election. So this would make the elections at the same time as everybody else's. And there's some sense to that, but that's going to require some legislation, and that's in the pipeline to go through. The other one was legislation. We've had a couple instances in the last 10 years where a company decided to revalue their property. Now, surprise, surprise, they revalued their property so it would be at a lower value, which means they had been paying too much on it in taxes because they were paying it at a higher value. So then they would come up to us and ask for a refund. And we've had to pay some refunds, 3-4 years of taxes.
And I would imagine that's pretty difficult when you've already hired the teachers.
And already spent the money.
And spent the money,
okay.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And what really has been bothersome about this in both cases, we didn't find out about it until the 0 hour. I mean, they'd been working on this for 3 years, and all of a sudden we find out about it. The law that's in the pipeline now would require these companies to let everybody impacted, school district, local government, whatever else, to tell us immediately when that process starts, which would be very helpful. The first time we had this kind of situation, we got told 36 hours before there was a deadline for an appeal. I've never moved so fast in my life. So that's a good piece of legislation. We had a lot of good discussion so we adopted two formal positions. We talked about these other two pieces of legislation, but we had a real good discussion with the delegation about a lot of issues. Senator Shaheen from our district, obviously, and Senator Fanning from up in Fairfield have recommended or proposed legislation that would reduce the amount of standardized testing, which I'm sure will get a lot of support from parents. There's legislation that's proposed that would require school districts to allow students in private school to participate in athletics if their private school doesn't offer that particular sport. I think that's going to get a lot of discussion. They talked to us about the budget issues. Obviously, you've got you have a lot of needs and not the same amount of money. I saw that Governor McMaster said something like we got a 6-foot bed and a 4-foot blanket. I like that. That's kind of how I feel every day. So I think there's going to be a lot of discussion in the budget and so forth, and tax issues, and I think it's important for school boards to have a grasp on this. It's important for the public to have a grasp on this. The decisions made in Columbia over the next 5 months will be felt directly next August when we return to school. Superintendent Spearman is recommending an increase to teacher salaries. Everybody agrees with that. However, the amount of increase to base student cost that she's proposing would barely cover it. It would mean that nobody else in the district could get a raise, which I have a philosophical problem with. And secondly, it might even mean in some districts they have to cut other stuff. I think we've done enough cutting. So the General Assembly is a really important thing. I will try to post things as I see and hear about them. What I tell folks all the time is, I know people don't read newspapers anymore, but the state newspaper does a pretty good job of covering the General Assembly in a fairly succinct way. You can go online and read it. You can buy it at the newsstand or get it delivered in your mailbox like I do every morning. But it's real important for educators to know what's going on in Columbia. Mm-hmm. We tend to think that, that's somewhere else and has to do with other people. It has directly to do with us. So I'm pleased that our board is going to be involved in these things. Mark Surrey from our board, from Elgin, is going to be the legislative liaison, and I know he's going to take that job very seriously.
Excellent. Well, speaking of meetings and working together, I know our school district has been working with the county and for ad hoc committee. Then you've got a report to share.
Well, it's a committee that includes council members, school board members, and community members, and it's met about 4 times. And what we've really been discussing is how school resource officers should be funded, and also, what kind of funding formula should there be for the school district based on enrollment growth or enrollment trends, or however you want to talk about it. Last night the committee met, and I think right now the proposal that's on the table is that for the next 2 years, we would continue to fund 2.5 school resource officers. The county would continue to fund 8.5. Okay, so, and just leave that for 2 years. The second thing that came out was a formula that would be put into place. And of course, both the school board and council would have to approve this. So, there's ways to go in this process, obviously, that would be based on enrollment trends. And I think that's a real positive thing, because we've not had a formula in place, and this is my 11th year, we haven't had a formula in place for 9 years. And that's a problem. Okay, it's hard to plan. And as I've told them, it's not just enrollment growth, it's the demographics of the enrollment. If it's lots of kids who bring in special education IEPs or have second language issues, it's not just the number of kids, it's what the kids bring to the table that we have to serve. So I think there's proposals on the table. I think there's going to be a meeting, there is going to be a meeting on the last Monday in January to kind of tie down the proposal. I think that the next step is going to be to put together a subcommittee of business folks and folks from the county and the school district to talk about how to increase retail development in our county, because of the way the tax structure is in South Carolina. Any kind of increase in school funding for operations has to come from businesses or second homes or rental properties. And that makes you real happy if, as far as your taxes on your first home. However, it puts a lot of pressure on people, especially in the business community. So more business means there would be less, impact on every individual business. And we're really pleased to have Amy Kynard from the Chamber that's on this committee, and I know that she'll take a leadership role as this further discussion. So we have a good proposal on the table. I think at the end of January it'll be finalized and sent to both bodies for approval or consideration, I guess would be the right word. And I'm looking forward to the fact that I think the second Saturday in February, not the 2nd February, I've been already invited today to present to County Council as they have their budget retreat, so I'm looking real forward to that. But the ad hoc committee has done a very nice job. It's been very good discussion. I think that Mr. McDonald from the school board and Mr. Tucker from County Council have done a great job leading this group.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. Well, the next school board meeting is actually less than a week away, on January 16th, and that will be at 6:30 because it is Board Appreciation Month, which we'll talk about a little bit later.
And the teacher forum is doing a little appreciation thing for the board before the meeting, so it starts at 5:30 and we start the meeting at 6:30.
6:30, perfect. Well, we want to talk about a couple other things. First off, we had some issues last week with weather and had a few delays. So talk to me about that a little bit.
Well, when I started looking at the weather right around January 1st, I started getting a little bit squirrely. Couple of reasons. The biggest issue when we have cold is buses starting. And it's not just, okay, you could start, so for example, we knew on January 3rd it was going to be cold. We brought people in January 2nd before school came back and started the buses. But what we have learned is it's not just a question of kicking them over the day before, it's running them. So we really had some questions about January 3rd, whether or not our buses would be able to get started in time.
Because I guess we should remind people we don't own the buses.
The state owns the buses.
States own the buses. They're older.
And how old the buses are is well documented. In fact, today I hope that the General Assembly overrode the governor's veto for funding for new school buses, which he vetoed last spring. Enough said.
That's right.
So we went 2 hours late on Wednesday based on our concern about the buses. Actually, we felt pretty good by the end of the day on Wednesday. However, then we got the snow. The snow was weird. Let me describe, okay.
It did not snow at all in my house.
It didn't snow hardly at all in Kershaw
Right.
County except in some isolated areas. Mm-hmm. So on Wednesday afternoon we decided, and this was after we had to send everybody home early on Wednesday, and here's the reason. At 4:30 in the morning, Kershaw County wasn't going to get anything. At 10 o'clock, that changed. And their timing on the storm...
In the morning, 10 o'clock in the morning.
10 o'clock in the morning. The timing on the storm was very, very questionable. And, of course, they were saying, well, it could start at 2 o'clock. However, the air is really dry. I mean, it was one of those kind of situations. We heard something from the... we worked with county, emergency services and Gene Falkenberry and his staff. And we listened to a conference call from the U.S. Weather Service at about 10 o'clock in the morning. And there was a pretty good chance we were going to get, at least in some parts of the county, pretty significant snow starting about 3 o'clock. So I wanted to get everybody home. So we turned them around and sent them back. In some parts of the county, about 3 o'clock, it started snowing. But where it really started snowing was where the county bumped up against the next county, like Bethune bumping up against Chesterfield, way out Highway 34 past Antioch, where we bump up against Sumter County on Route 521. And it was weird. Okay. We watched it, and we decided to go 2 hours late because I wanted to get my arms around that issue. I didn't really know exactly how bad it was going to be in those areas. On Thursday morning, Billy Smith from the district staff and I went out and started looking at roads I hit the road at about 4:30, and he did too. And my first run was to go all the way out Route 1 to Bethune. So I'm on Route 1. I go through Camden, there's nothing. I get to Midway, nothing. Get to Cassett, nothing. I get about 2 miles beyond Cassett, and you thought I had passed through a magic mirror. It was Siberia. Snow, ice, the temperature dropped. It was insane. Got to Bethune and went beyond to the Chesterfield line. It was worse there. Okay, came back, took Route 341 towards the Buffalo area. 2 miles outside of Bethune, nothing. Turn around, go back the other way on 341, and it's not real good. And then I go down Old Stagecoach Road, which for 2 miles was pretty tough, and then there's nothing. It was the strangest storm I ever saw. Got 521 to Sumter. When you got about a mile past where modern turf is on 521, it started getting pretty hairy. But you went 2 miles the other way, there was nothing. It was a very strange storm. So what we did is we went 2 hours late. We closed Bethune Elementary because there was just no way I was going to run buses through Bethune that day. And we called parents on a couple of other routes because I had a real concern about closing the county over a fairly limited number of areas. I really did. And that turned out okay. So we were trying to decide what to do Friday morning. I talked to the transportation folks. They felt confident in the buses, and as it turned out, the buses turned over on time. We didn't have any late bus issues. It was all good. One of the pieces of feedback I started getting from parents on Thursday was, I'm having to make the choice whether to go to work or not go to work and not get paid, or leaving my elementary kids by themselves for 3 or 4 hours so that I can go to work. That turned out to be kind of a difficult issue. So we decided to go to school on Friday on time, and every other district in the Midlands and Lancaster did too. So I felt like that worked out okay, but there was actually some logic behind it. And as it turned out, the buses all did fine. Nobody, unless you went out real early, you didn't have to wait for your bus any longer than normal. The buses were right within on time. And Monday morning we were relatively back to normal, though it was still cold. And then today it's in the 50s right now. It's kind of interesting. There's multiple factors you look at when you decide on a school closing or late opening. What folks need to understand is that we have a lot of people that live in this community that if they don't go to work, they don't get paid. And they have to start making really difficult choices about, whether or not they can miss work and not get paid or leave their kids at home. So we tried to balance all that on Friday, and it turned out fine. Okay. It turned out fine. I know, I look back on it and thought I still feel real good about the decision. But again, it's a situation to situation to decision. And when we do this, we also talk to neighboring districts and find out what they're doing. There's that discussion. Now, Chesterfield, they didn't go back till Monday on a 2-hour delay, and they couldn't even run their buses on every part of their county. I think Lee County did close yesterday. I think they were back today. I mean, a lot of districts didn't reopen till yesterday or today. So we kind of lucked out.
That's right. That's right. And Bethune Elementary School is making up that day on the 16th, our
yes.
board meeting day.
And it's because all schools have to go 180 days. They have to make up the first 3 days.
That's right. And it was a teacher work day, so that works out very well.
It
okay.
does.
Excellent. Well, we wanted to talk about somebody who's been very special to our district, Principal Ginger Catoe from Davies Mills. So talk to me about what's going on.
Ginger was one of my first appointments because when I got here in the fall of '07, right after I got here, Dr. Glenn Huggins, who was principal at Davies Mill, took a job in Dorchester County, and I recommended, and the board approved Ginger being appointed as interim, and later she became the full-time principal after the year. Ginger has done a fantastic job at Davies Mill. She is taking a job at the South Carolina Department of Education overseeing early childhood and literacy programs, and she is uniquely qualified for it. It's going to do a great job.
And of course, that's a huge passion of hers too.
Yeah, literacy is her thing. She's just an old
suited.
Yeah, she's an old English teacher and reading teacher and everything else. So Ginger will be leaving us on the 16th and starting at the Rutledge Building in Columbia.
So of course we wish her very
and
well.
We do, and I know she's going to
Absolutely.
do a great job. And as I said to her faculty, I'm really glad to see some Kershaw County thinking going into Columbia. Now, for the rest of the year, Ms. Linda Hall will be the interim principal. Ms. Hall is a retired principal from Richland 2. She was principal at Round Top and Rice Creek. She's going to do a great job keeping things moving forward at Davies Mill. No issue about that. I'm real excited that Ms. Hall was willing to come and work with us for a semester. What we're going to do with Davies Mill is we're going to advertise it in February. I think there's going to be a lot of interest in that job, both internally and externally, because it's a darn fine school and has, and it would be a great place to be principal. So I'm very confident about the quality of the candidate pool we're going to get for that. What I hope to do is be able to announce who the new principal will be before the end of the school year so we can do some transitioning, no matter where that person is coming from. And I'm really excited. I think the Davies Mill faculty will step up and do all the things that they normally do to keep their school moving forward.
Excellent.
But I know that Ginger Catoe is going to do a fantastic job at the state.
Absolutely.
No question in my mind.
Absolutely. We're very proud of her for that. I wanted to mention real quick that we do have the Teacher Career Fair that's coming up January 27th, and I'm mentioning it now because the deadline for anybody who's interested to register is January 20th. Mm-hmm. So just go straight to our website and you can get to it. And I know we'll talk a little bit more about this on the next podcast.
I'm really excited. There's an electronic billboard at the corner of Clemson and Earth Road, which has that advertises it, which I was real excited about. Over Christmas break, I went by there 3 or 4 times just so I could see it. But this is an important event. I think if people in the community know of people that are interested in coming to work in Kershaw County, this is a great event to come to. We will, if for strong candidates, start signing right away for next year.
Start signing contracts,
in fact,
right?
We've already signed students or teachers that were doing their student teaching for next year already.
Excellent. So even if they haven't finished their
student teaching, if they're student teaching right now, we're still willing to look at strong candidates and get them signed. So I would encourage folks to come. It's a lot of fun actually. Get to talk to everybody from the schools. It's an event I kind of enjoy.
Absolutely.
It's Saturday morning and I have to shave, but that's a whole other discussion.
Oh, we wanted to end talking about this being Board Appreciation Month.
I've been doing this work 43 years. I've worked very directly with school boards, very directly since the early 90s. Being a school board member is the hardest public service job there is because you're dealing with our most precious commodity, which is our children. School board members operate in an environment where no matter what they do, somebody's not going to like it. And county council does that too, but I don't think the issues are as emotional as it is with a school board.
Not on a regular basis, right?
Absolutely. I don't believe that they deal with weighty and important issues, but I don't think the issues are as emotional because they do have to deal with children. Our school board members are paid $75 a meeting, which probably covers all the meals they have to eat out because of their school board responsibilities and all the stuff they attend and so forth, and all the people that hit them up for candy and whatever else, fruit, whatever else is being sold. So it's fitting and proper that in January, we asked the community to recognize school boards for the work that they do. It is a difficult job. Somebody once asked me, more than once asked me, well, Frank, when you retire, do you want to be on a school board? The answer is heck no. It is a tough job. Okay, it is a tough job. And the people that do it deserve a tremendous amount of gratitude and credit from the people in the community, because it is such a tough job. And over the past 10 years, I think it's only become tougher. And, the other thing I'll say is that, it's sort of like going to a Little League game. Everybody knows about baseball, and everybody knows, what to do. Everybody's going to school, so everybody's an expert on education. And I think school boards operate in that kind of environment. And our school board certainly works as hard as any board I've ever seen in my career. So I think this is a great opportunity to recognize school boards, and I hope folks, if they know their school board member, will say something nice to them this month. Gosh knows they deserve it.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, school board members. Thank you, Dr. Morgan, and we will talk again soon next week.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Kershaw County School District podcast. For more information about our school district, please visit our website at www.kershaw.k12.sc.us.